I'm Coral, I'm a social worker, I work for Bury Council, I work in the older people's mental health team. For the last 12 months I've been working on a project around social work intervention with trans and gender diverse service users. I work with adults, so the project has been based with adults, and it emerged from a practice problem that I understood more about when I was working in a previous team with a couple of trans and non-binary service users and talking anecdotally about their experiences in social care. So the plan for the pre-doc was to take trans theory, which is a master's level module at the University of Manchester, apply to attend the sexuality summer school, submit an abstract to the Sexuality and Social Work Conference, which was nothing that I'd ever done before, so I was a bit like, how's this going to go? What do I even need to do? Conduct some public involvement work and also carry out a scoping review. And these were the outputs which I surprised myself with. I took trans theory, I'm in the process of conducting the scoping review, I attended the summer school, I was accepted to sexuality and social work and also added on the postgraduate conference Joint University Social Work Association. I'm part of a great community of practice and social care research forum. My public involvement is ongoing. I've been involved in some workplace activities too. Now, because there are quite a few things to talk about, I've chosen the ones that I think have been particularly important to the project. The first of these was trans theory. So last September, I was very grateful that Dr. Gareth Gavin welcomed me into his little cohort of master's students, and I was able to learn a lot more about trans theory, and I really got to ground the project in trans theory, trans history, and trans politics. And I sort of understood a bit more about how ordinarily we talk about the LGBTQ community. But actually, when you really think about that in more detail, there's an importance to splitting that up and talking about trans and gender diverse adults separately. Because although you see the acronym and you think there's like an innate togetherness, there are important distinctions to be made. Which really cemented for me the idea of centering trans and gender diverse adults. So I'm happy that I was able to take trans theory and sort of ground the project in a way that felt a little bit more meaningful in a lot of ways. The second activity was my scoping review, which was essentially just trying to figure out what's been written on this topic previously and apply it to my set of guiding questions, which were about existing research on social work and trans issues, the role of social workers in trans lives, different forms of social work intervention, and social work intervention in terms of how did we become involved in this type of work. Some of the search terms were relating to what I put on the slide, so social work, gender affirming care, trans and gender reassignment. I was just trying to capture as much work as possible and see what fell out, and I was a little bit like, what's going to come up here? I don't really know. Anyway, what did come up were more than 6,000 pieces of work, and after I'd applied my exclusion criteria, I sort of submitted 34 for my own full review, and I was quite surprised because I found some unexpected things, which included recordings from the first symposium on gender identity, which took place in London in 1969, and some papers from the first National Trans and Transsexual Conference, which took place in Leeds in 1974. So based on the questions that I've asked and my exclusion criteria, the themes that have sort of fallen out of, adding those two things together are the following. So experiences of institutional violence, different forms of advocacy, self-advocacy, professional advocacy, institutional advocacy, epistemic peerhood, the importance of using norm-critical approaches, cultural competence, and different forms of peer and kinship. The scope and review, like I say, is a work in progress. I'm in a bit of a writing phase now, which has been difficult at times, but I've been able to kind of gather my thoughts with the support of my supervisors, and they've helped me sort of navigate how to write it, what it needs to look like, and what needs to be at the forefront, and so on and so forth. I was able to present some initial findings at JustWork and Sexuality and Social Work in Slovenia, so that was really, really good, as well as taking them to the inclusion board at Bury Council. So just to talk a little bit more about workplace activities, the council had their CQC assessment last month, so I was asked to join a group and talk a little bit more about the pre-doc and some of the activities that I'd been doing. I've attended our inclusion board, and I'm trying to sort of map the project within some wider equity, diversity and inclusion work that we're doing. Perhaps because I'm the only person in my organisation who is on a pre-doctoral programme, or what I would describe as like a non-traditional programme of study. I do have an interest in widening participation and building capacity within adult social care and social work, so I'm hoping that I can do a bit more around that, because I know that there's a few colleagues who've got ideas for projects but aren't really sure about like how they would get off the ground. And also I am very much hoping that some of my colleagues will get involved in some of my involvement work when I can get that set up. In terms of my next steps, I'm very grateful because my pre-doc has been extended until the end of March. Like I say, I'm conducting a scoping review in the writing phase. The public involvement work will continue. It's maybe been a little bit more difficult than some other projects just because of the size of the population that I'm looking to talk to. I've been asked to participate in Greater Manchester Social Work Academy's calendar of events for their World Social Work Week next year, and I plan to apply for a doctoral fellowship going forward. Finally, I do have a few thank yous because it has taken a village, and I wouldn't have been able to do like half of the things that I've done without people's support. So Steve, Darman and Penny for supervising, facilitating, troubleshooting, advocating for me at several points. Ross, Alison, Joanna, Anila, Sue, Caroline and Karishma, who has got me back online today, so I'm very, very grateful for that. My peers in the Social Care Research Forum, the pre-doc cohort, my colleagues at the council, there's been various PhD students have shared their wisdom with me, and again, just my peers in trans theory, the Sexuality Summer School, and people at the conferences that I've attended who have sort of pushed me on and told me like this is important work, you should keep going with it. So thank you very much.